we played the next game. I mean, that's just how it was then. But, so this narrative about the Pistons were so rough and tough and everybody was so soft, so they had to legislate the game because the Pistons were beating everybody up. Time out. That's not quite how I remember.
You anticipate seeing Michael Jordan at some point and clearing the air of why he would hate you 30 years later?
So first of all, there's no air to clear from my point of view, because I genuinely don't have anything against him, nor did I ever. I'm not that kind of guy. I played out on the floor, in between the four lines, and I'm okay with saying, the time that we competed when we were both young and healthy, and he didn't have injuries and I didn't have injuries, I'm pretty confident in saying, my record was pretty dominant against him and against his team, and in terms of my team. Now, outside of the four lines, I got nothing I got nothing but love and respect for the brother in terms of, who he is, what he's done, and what he's accomplished. We as former players, current players, we owe a great deal of debt to Michael Jordan and LeBron James, because what those two have done for our league and our game financially and raised it to another level, it's been great for all of us. We get to be on this show and talk basketball 24/7, 365 during COVID because of what, Jordan has done and what LeBron has done. So, we as a collective family, brotherhood, so forth and so on, I believe in that. And that's what I live by and go by. So I don't have anything against the brother. Now, if he puts on number 23 and I put on number 11, okay, yeah, we're going to go compete. But outside of that, that's all it was for me.
You mentioned the importance of Michael Jordan in terms of elevating the league. That, to me, says that the league had a major investment in Michael Jordan. David Stern and the whole league, they poured all their chips into Michael Jordan. He was the establishment. You, as the head of the Players Union during your playing career, you went head-to-head with David Stern and the league. Real battles that you did pretty well in. Did you know at the time that you were taking on the establishment the way that you were, and that it would define your post-career the way that it has?
Absolutely, we did. Not only myself, but the Detroit Pistons as a small market and what we stood for in the game of basketball at that particular time. Because at that particular time, no small market team had ever dominated the way we were dominating. It was always Boston, LA, Philadelphia, and Chicago. Those were the four big markets that the league wanted to promote. And we as a Players Association and players knew that it helped when those four markets were doing well, that the league does well. Now, what we were able to do as a small market team is to create the next generation for a San Antonio Spurs to happen. Because the San Antonio Spurs, what they became is really, the fast forward or uptick of what the Pistons were in Detroit. Small markets team, dominating, so forth and so on. The other thing that we were able to do we were the first team to experiment with changing our colors. We were the first team, we went to the silver and black, the Raider colors, because we met Al Davis after Pat Riley wouldn't give me no ice after I sprained my ankle, game 6. We had to go to the Raiders facility to train to try to heal up. But, so we took on the silver and black. Mike Ornstein gave us the Raider logos and everything else. So we started playing with our colors. Not only did we start playing with our colors while I was the president of the Players Association moving forward, then we started upgrading our hotel. So instead of staying at, the 3-star hotels, we upgraded and went to the 5-star hotels. We changed our travel. We were the first team to get our own private plane and start moving around the league. So that, of course, we knew we were attacking the establishment. and the establishment didn't like what we were doing and what we were representing, not only as team, but also as players. The things that we were talking about in terms of race, class, and gender, that was coming out of our Pistons organization, that was coming out of, our interviews, the discourse that we put out into the public. We were very, against not against, but forward thinking in terms of where the league was going and where we thought the league should be. So, and when you ask me, did I know that we was going against the establishment? So that question is absolutely yes. And by the way, we saw Michael Jordan as part of us, as a union, as a players group. And by the way, all those guys that they said don't like me, they voted me to be their president and represent them. But Michael Jordan was, at that time, we were getting 53% of the gross. So when we looked at Michael Jordan, not only did we look at him as a great basketball player and someone who was elevating the league, but we also looked at him as 53% of the gross. So he was one of us, and he was helping uplift the league. So my job as the president was to make sure that we kept the 53 cents on the dollar, and the owners kept 47. Well, at that time, they wanted a little bit more, and we fought and battled. And I'll say, most of the battles, when I was president of the union and vice president of the union, we won most of our battles at the negotiating table. If not all.
Isiah, final question before we go to commercial break, and we'll come back with some more questions. But if you could answer this in 60, 90 seconds, and take as long as you want. Michael Jordan called y'all bad for basketball before sweeping y'all. Listening to what you just said about the league and his importance and elevating, could you understand why David Stern and perhaps the league thought the Pistons were bad for basketball? Because y'all were standing in the way of Michael Jordan.
Yeah, I can understand the way that they were thinking it, probably in the league office, because monetarily, as we've seen, this is a business too. And you definitely, while the Pistons were making money and the bad boys were making money, in the 80s, the highest rated games in the 80s, Pistons versus Celtics, Pistons versus Chicago, Pistons versus Lakers. They have one thing in common, the Detroit Pistons. So the highest rated games in the 80s were the games that we played in. The merchandise that was selling at that time, bad boy Piston merchandise, people were wearing it everywhere. And then when you look at the crowds that we were bringing in at that time, we were putting, 40, 50, 60,000 people in the Silver Dome. So what we were doing energetically, and also what we were doing from a financial standpoint, we were bringing more people to the game. Now, what the league office understood is that Jordan in Chicago being a bigger market than Detroit, Jordan having a Nike behind him that was moving into marketing, those connections and those two together definitely, elevated him in our league, in us as players, to another level. So I do understand the business aspect of it.
All right, don't go anywhere. Isiah Thomas is going to rejoin us, and Marcellus is going to ask him, would Michael Jordan be Michael Jordan without Isiah Thomas?